Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're gonna talk about this 3D printed Boba Fett action figure, and it looks like you know, a nice scale, but it's a trick of the camera, kind of disguises the fact that it is life size. It's a full size Boba Fett. It's 6 feet tall. I'm 5'10", so this is about 6 feet, all said and done, and all 3D printed. And I figured we'd talk about it. This was modeled by Sean Fields, who I believe started with a scan of one of the figures and then cleaned up a scan and remodeled a lot of the pieces to make sure they're nice and clean and that they print properly. But it's really detailed. It has all the seam lines that the action figure would have and everything. It's very, very cool. Now, I printed this relatively quickly. I think it maybe took me just over a week to print all of these pieces. Everything so far has been printed on my Creality CR10 S5 3D printer, which if you've seen one of these, they've got a large print bed area, 500 by 500 by 500, which is a really nice print size. I was able to print this entire chest from basically the top of the belt all the way to the neck. This whole piece is one part. I know it's red and silver, but that's just because I ran out of material and I had to change color halfway through. But this is one print. And it's, to date, the largest print that I've ever done. It's just enormous. So I should say in one shot. I've done some full costumes before, but I've printed them in tons of pieces and then, assembled them. But this is that whole torso from the belt, just above the belt, all the way to the neck. That's just one giant piece. And the same thing, like the shorts are one piece. And then the legs are 4 pieces, arms are 4 pieces, head is 1 piece. So having that large printer has been really, really handy. Another thing I've been doing to speed up this process and save on material is I've been printing with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, a 0.8 millimeter nozzle at between 0.3 and 0.4 millimeter layer height. And I've been using this adaptive layer height, and I use Slicer for this one instead of Cura, which is what comes with the Creality CR10 printer. I use Slicer. It's got some ways that you can adjust. Like if most of the part is sort of simple, but then you need a lot of detail for a certain curve, you can turn up the detail in that area so that it'll print a smaller layer height for those layers to make sure that you get the detail you need or a curve works. Most of the parts have no infill. There's a handful that do, but almost everything has no infill, which is sketchy, but it doesn't matter much because I'm joining all these parts together. So the only parts that really suffered from not using the infill were the ends of the tops and bottoms kind of got a little sketchy. They printed, but they were weak. But it doesn't matter because I'm gluing everything together. I'm going to run PVC tubing inside the limbs and then backfill them with expanding foam so that they are really, really sturdy and won't snap apart if I break them. All the seam lines where everything joins together, I will be bondoing anyway. So if there's any spots where the print is a little too thin, I'm going to run Bondo over those sections and just sand it out. So I'm not really worried about those things. I know some people would look at it and be like, oh, this print is ruined. And I look at it and think, I've got enough there to work with. All the shapes are established. If there's some little holes in the filament, like it's a little too thin on the top, a little Bondo, sand it, and done. Another thing is that this whole print, life-size print, is only, at this point, it's about 7 rolls of filament so far, and I'm just into my 8th roll, and I think it'll be, I'm probably only going to use half that roll to finish this out. So I'm going to, right now, call it at 7.5 rolls of filament for an entire, let me stand next to this again to emphasize, an entire life-size, and I am standing next to it, this isn't like a camera trick, life-size Boba Fett. But anyway, over the next few weeks, I'm going to start getting it primed and prepped. And then once that's done, I'll get into the final painting stages, which I'm probably going to do maybe 2 versions. I might do the Super Trooper version, the all white Boba Fett version at first, just to establish, make sure it's all clean. And I think that would be fun to do. And then I want to do the old school action figure paint job, which I love. That'll be the final kind of paint scheme on this. Another thing I'm going to do is make a small base with a 1/2-inch steel rod that holds it up. So kind of like a mannequin setup where there's a tube inside the leg and then the rod goes into the bottom of the leg. and it should prevent it from falling over and definitely just make it a little more stable. Right now it stands on its own really nicely, so Sean did a really good job of, you know, balancing it out. It is awesome. But I did replace, there are some 3D printed joints that hold the arms and everything together, and I just didn't use those, and I'm using PVC, so I just cut PVC rod to hold everything together. And I haven't decided the final output of that yet, but I may bond it in place on the inside or get like a slightly larger tube, kind of like I do with the 3PO mannequins, where there's a larger tube on the inside and then the tube that's actually holding the arms slides in there and locks, or has some magnets or something. I don't know yet. But anyway, just want to show you because it's now, it looks like a full figure. And as I get back into fixing up the parts, I'll show the rest. It will have the rocket firing jetpack, which those are the parts that are left to print right now, or some of the finishing parts on the jetpack. So it actually has the missile that fires off. So that's pretty cool. And another thing about this is, because of the size, I think that I could turn this into a wearable costume. Now, I don't think I'm going to turn this exact print into a wearable costume, but I think I'm going to use this to make wearable costume parts. And if I do, I'll make a video series on how I'm going to do that, because I think I'm going to avoid using silicone at all. I'm going to make hard molds based on the fact that this figure, as the real action figure, was printed in, you know, a metal mold out of plastic. They have already drafted almost all of the undercuts, so I just have to check and make sure that none have been added back in the process of converting it to a 3D file. But if all the undercuts are gone, I should, in theory, be able to make a hard mold, which means no silicone, which saves hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in mold materials, which means that cost-wise, it makes it a little more doable to turn these prints into a wearable costume. And again, if I get into that, I'll definitely do a video series on that if ever you guys are interested in seeing it, because I would like an excuse to do that, but it is not really my schedule right now. But if I can fit it in, I will. Anyway, there it is, 3D printed Boba Fett. I think once I prime it and get it just gray again, I'm going to do an even more in-depth video to show the rocket pack and maybe show close up how everything looks. I'm going to just prime it gray and not do any cleanup, nothing. It's just going to unify the colors so it's easier to look at. And then I'll do another video here, maybe like a week or so, and we can look at all the pieces up close. But anyway, thanks for stopping by. I just wanted to show you where this thing is at. It's really cool. Every time I walk through the room, I'm like, oh my gosh, Boba Fett. It's really cool. So anyway, yeah, thanks for stopping by, guys. I will be back soon. Let me know if you have questions about this. Again, modeled by Sean Fields. Awesome modeler, really talented guy. I will try to put a link in the description below to his page where he sells a lot of his models and so forth. I don't know if he has this one posted yet. He may. But I know he's working on a few other figures. So check out his stuff, and I will be back soon. Thanks again. Later, kids.